There is a 4-year-old Toyota sedan crossing an auction lane right now, somewhere in California, and nobody is bidding on it. It cost almost $50,000 new. It has low miles, clean paint, a cabin that still smells like the factory, and the bids are stalling under $10,000, 10 cents on the dollar territory, for a Toyota, with a warranty still breathing. Anybody who has spent time around auctions knows that is not supposed to happen. A Toyota badge is supposed to be the closest thing the used market has to a savings account. Dealers pay extra for that badge at auction because they know it walks off the lot by Friday. And yet, here is one that the market will not touch at any price that makes sense. Now I will be straight with you right up front, because that is how we do things here. Toyota did not suddenly forget how to build cars. Between 2025 and 2026, used values across the whole market actually firmed up, and Toyota still holds more spots at the top of the resale rankings than any other brand. The badge is fine, but inside that lineup, there are 12 specific machines that went the other way. Some of them shed value faster than almost anything else you can buy. Some of them collapsed for reasons that have nothing to do with the metal and everything to do with decisions made in a boardroom. And one of them is a full-size truck that lost thousands of dollars of value in a matter of months because of what is sitting between the frame rails. I have spent a lot of years watching what machines are actually worth once the sticker comes off the glass. And I can tell you the pattern here is not random. Every one of these 12 crashed for a reason. And once you see the reasons lined up, you will understand more about how the used market really works than most salesmen do. Stay for the last two especially. One of them is that sedan on the auction block, and the other is the part of this story that should genuinely make you angry. Here is what is really going on in one sentence. Toyota built its resale reputation on simple, proven, slightly boring machines that were overbuilt and underpromised. And nearly every car on this list is a place where Toyota walked away from that formula. New nameplates nobody asked for. First-year engines. Technology bets that did not land. Watch for that thread as we go, because it runs through all 12. The market is not punishing the badge. The market is punishing the departures from what the badge used to mean. Let me show you. Number 1, the Avalon. This was Toyota's big, comfortable cruiser, a stretched Camry with a soft ride and a back seat you could sleep in, and for almost 30 years, it was one of the most sensible large sedans money could buy. Toyota killed it after the 2022 model year because buyers wanted crossovers. And here is what happens to a car when its family line ends. The trade calls it an orphan, and orphans bleed. The last Avalons were still holding decently a few years in, around a quarter of their value gone after 3 years, which is respectable. But the direction of travel only goes one way now. No new models means no fresh marketing, fading dealer interest, and parts that get scarcer every year. The car itself did not get worse. The hybrid version still returns 40-plus miles to the gallon on a drivetrain that has been proving itself since before some of its buyers had a license, and the V6 in the older cars is one of the most durable engines Toyota ever shipped. The company simply stopped standing behind the nameplate and the market prices that in. Ask anybody who held on to a discontinued model for a decade, and they will tell you the same story. The first few years are fine, and then one day the local dealer's parts counter starts saying special order, and the value line bends downward and never bends back. If you own a late Avalon, it is a lovely thing. Genuinely one of the last honest big sedans. It is also a melting ice cube. The old rule from the used car business applies here. The worst thing that can happen to a car's value is not a bad review. It is abandonment. Number 2, The Venza. Same disease, different patient. The Venza was the stylish version of the RAV4 Hybrid, a sleeker roof, a nicer cabin, a higher price, and less cargo room. And buyers looked at it, looked at the RAV4 sitting 10 feet away on the same showroom floor, and bought the RAV4. Toyota discontinued the Venza after 2024. The projections now sit at around 38% of its value gone in 5 years, roughly a $16,000 hit on a $43,000 machine. That would be ordinary for most brands, but park it next to its own sibling and it stings, because the RAV4 Hybrid holds on to roughly 70% of its value over the same stretch. Same platform underneath. Same hybrid system, same badge. The difference is that one of them was the proven, popular, slightly boring choice, and the other was the fashion statement. The market always pays for boring and proven. It rarely pays for fashion twice. Now here is the honest flip side, because there is one. If you are shopping used rather than selling, a discontinued Venza is quietly one of the better bargains in the whole Toyota family. Underneath the sleek roofline, it is all proven RAV4 hybrid hardware. The same batteries, the same motors, the same track record, just wearing a suit nobody wanted to pay retail for. Somebody else already ate the depreciation on the styling. You just get the machine. Number 3. The Crown. Toyota retired the Avalon and replaced it with this. A tall sedan on stilts that is not quite a car and not quite a crossover, wearing a nameplate Americans had never heard of, and a price tag that started around $51,000. The hybrid drivetrain is genuinely good, up to 340 horsepower in the top version, and the thing rides beautifully. I am not going to pretend it is a bad machine, because it is not. But the market has to know what a thing is before it will pay for it used, and nobody knows what a Crown is. The data now shows it losing about half its value in 5 years, roughly 51% by one major estimate, which turns a $50,000 car into a $25,000 car while you watch. For a Toyota sedan, that is a collapse. The lesson is old and simple. A confused shopper does not haggle. A confused shopper walks, and every confused shopper who walks away from a used Crown knocks another few $100s off the next one. Number 4. The Crown Signia. This is the crossover wagon that replaced the Venza, so it is the replacement for a canceled car, wearing the nameplate of a confusing car, priced from around $45,000. You can see the problem forming already. Now, I will give you the honest caveat, because the numbers here genuinely disagree. One tracker is fairly kind to it, projecting only about 30% gone in 5 years. But the Big Blue Book estimate on the loaded hybrid version shows nearly $24,000 of depreciation over 5 years, which is close to half the money. When the major valuation houses are that far apart on the same vehicle, that tells you something all by itself. It means the market has not decided yet, and an undecided market is a dangerous place to park $50,000. The Venza at least had a proven Toyota recipe underneath, and it still got canceled. The Signia is asking more money for the same experiment, one more time, with a stranger name. Number 5, the Sequoia. The old second-generation Sequoia, the one with the big V8 that ran from the late 2000s, was a body-on-frame tank that held its value forever, in the range of 70% retained after 5 years. The new third generation that landed for 2023 is a different story. The pessimistic projections run as high as 55% of its value gone in 5 years, on a truck that starts around $62,000 and climbs past $83,000 in capstone trim. One major reviewer called it outdated on arrival, and the complaint that actually stuck was not the engine, it was the cargo floor. Toyota mounted the hybrid battery in a way that eats the load space, so the whole back of this enormous 3-row SUV sits high and shallow. Think about that. The single job of a giant family hauler is hauling, and the new drivetrain compromised the hauling. The old truck was simple, thirsty, and honest. That V8 would drink fuel like it was free, sure, but it would also run to 300,000 miles with oil changes and neglect, and everybody knew it, which is exactly why the used ones commanded real money for 15 years. The new one is clever, efficient, and compromised, with a twin-turbo hybrid drivetrain that shares its basic architecture with the recalled Tundra engine we will get to in a minute, and a packaging decision that traded the truck's entire reason for existing against a battery. The market has told you very clearly which one it trusts. When a buyer will pay more for the old, thirsty, ancient design than the projections say the new one will hold, that is not nostalgia. That is a verdict. Number 6, the Grand Highlander. Here is the strangest case on the list, and I will lay the conflicting evidence right on the table. The regular Highlander is a depreciation fighting champion, one of the safest family SUV buys in the entire market. Toyota then launched a bigger, more expensive machine and put the same trusted name on it. Some projections now have the Grand version losing over half its original price in 5 years. Meanwhile, the Blue Book tracked an actual 2024 Grand Highlander hybrid and found it lost only about 10% in its first 2 years, which is excellent. So which is it, a crash or a champion? Honestly, right now, it is both, depending on whose crystal ball you trust. And that split is exactly the point. When Toyota stretched a proven nameplate over an unproven vehicle, it split the resale story in two. A shopper searching for a used Highlander now finds two very different machines with two very different value curves wearing the same badge. That confusion costs real money at trade and time, and it was completely self-inflicted. Number 7. The GR Supra. The reborn Supra, built in Austria on the bones of the BMW Z4, is going out of production. 2026 is the final year. Send off with a final edition that runs close to $70,000, while the standard car starts around $59,000. During the pandemic bubble, these things barely depreciated at all. There was a stretch where a 5-year-old example had lost only about 7% of its sticker, and a few sold at auction for more than they cost new. That era is over. Used examples are now piling up on the market as the model winds down, and the sober long-term projections put losses somewhere between the high 30s and 45% over 5 years. On a $60,000 coupe, that is a $20,000 haircut. I will be fair to it. The turbocharged straight 6 is a genuinely great engine, 382 horsepower of it, and the manual gearbox cars will likely fare best of all. But if you bought one expecting the Mark IV's collector magic, understand what you actually bought. The 90s Supra earned its legend the hard way, with an over-engineered iron block that tuners could push to double and triple the factory power without opening it up, built entirely in-house by Toyota. The new car is a fine sports coupe assembled around another company's engineering, and the collector market has a long memory for that distinction. Maybe the final editions and the manuals become collectible someday. The ordinary automatics sitting in growing numbers on used lots right now are just sports cars in a shrinking sports car market. The market prices the machine in front of it, not the poster on your wall. Number 8. And this is the one that surprises people. The Corolla. Yes, that Corolla, the most trustworthy nameplate in the business. The 2025 sedan models lost between 11 and 19% of their value in a single year, which is a genuinely steep first-year drop for this car. One hatchback trim shed over $3,000 off a $28,000 sticker in 12 months. Now watch the contrast, because it is beautiful. The Corolla Cross, the little crossover wearing the same name, dropped only 2 to 9% over the same year, and a couple of trims lost merely hundreds of dollars. Same badge, same showroom, same drivetrain philosophy, wildly different outcome, and the only real difference is the body style. Sedans are out of favor and crossovers are in, and not even the mighty Corolla name can fight the shape of the market. If there were ever proof that resale value lives and dies on what buyers want rather than what a machine deserves, this is it. And there is a practical angle buried in here worth grabbing. If you actually like sedans, this is your moment, because you can now pick up a barely used Corolla with the full factory warranty for thousands under sticker, while the crossover crowd pays nearly new prices for the same mechanicals sitting 3 inches higher. The engineering is identical. The discount is purely about the shape. Sometimes the smartest money in the used market is buying whatever body style is currently out of fashion, because the machine underneath never got the memo. Number 9. The Land Cruiser. Toyota brought the Legend back for 2024, smaller than before, hybrid only, priced in the high 50,000s, and the first year was a stampede. Sales in the first half of 2025 were up nearly 690% over the year before. And you can understand the early excitement because the old 200 series Land Cruiser was the stuff of legend, a big, naturally aspirated machine that outlasted wars, deserts, and its own owners, and routinely sold used for numbers that made accountants blink. The new one arrived smaller, cheaper, and turbocharged, promising the Legend at a friendlier price. Then the stampede stopped. Sales in 2026 are down nearly 48%. Leftover 2025 models are sitting on lots with $4,000 and $5,000 markdowns, and a well-shopped leftover now undercuts the new one by thousands. The Blue Book already shows a 2024 example down about 15%, close to $9,000, in 2 years. For most vehicles, that would be normal. For a nameplate whose entire legend was built on holding value like a fortress, it is a warning shot. Here is the mechanism, plain and simple. When dealers discount the new one, every used one has to fall further to stay cheaper than new. The discounts on the lot today are writing the trade and values of next year, and no heritage badge is exempt from that arithmetic. Number 10. The BZ4X. Toyota's first mass-market electric vehicle, and the place where the resale magic simply did not transfer. 3-year-old examples are now trading at roughly half of their original sticker. The long-range projections sit in the mid-40s to high 50s% of value gone in 5 years. And the early real-world cases were brutal. One example that sold new for around $50,000 was listed at under $33,000 with 5,000 miles on the clock, about a 35% loss in 8 months. Part of this is the whole electric market, where every used example competes with next year's better battery. But part of it was self-inflicted, because Toyota then cut the new car's sticker by roughly $6,000. And every used one on the planet had to drop to stay under the new price. Add modest range and slow charging that peaked at 88 kilowatts in one real-world test, taking over 4 hours to fill in that same test, in a market where rivals top up in half an hour, and you get a Toyota that depreciates like a first-generation gadget. Because that is exactly what it is. And here is the twist that stings the most. Toyota's own plug-in hybrid, the RAV4 Prime, holds value beautifully, losing well under 20% in its first 2 years because it is the proven recipe with a plug attached. Same company, same showroom, same year. The half step they had mastered kept its value. The full leap they rushed lost half of it. Number 11. The Tundra. Here is the part of the story that should make you angry, and I want you to follow the sequence, because the sequence is everything. Toyota launched the new Tundra for 2022 with a fresh twin-turbo V6, replacing the old proven V8, an engine so famously reliable that used trucks carrying it barely depreciated at all for 2 decades. Then machining debris left inside some of the new engines during production started killing main bearings. Let me translate that for you, because it matters. Main bearings are the thin metal shells the crankshaft spins on, riding on a film of oil about as thick as a human hair. Any grit trapped in there scores the surface, the oil film breaks down, and the bearing eats itself, which can shut an engine down at highway speed with no warning beyond a knock you hear a few days too late. The old mechanics used to say an engine dies at the bearings first, and they were right. In 2024, Toyota recalled around 100,000 trucks, and the fix was the right one, a complete replacement engine, free. Then in November of 2025, the recall expanded by roughly 127,000 more vehicles, including the related Lexus models, and the remedy for that second wave has been postponed into 2026. And somewhere along the way, after roughly 70,000 engines had been swapped, the approach reportedly changed. Instead of automatic replacement, technicians now use a listening device to check for bearing noise and read the truck's own computer logs to judge how it has been driven, and the software decides which trucks get new engines and which get waved through. Now watch what the market did with all that. One tracked 2022, Tundra dropped about $6,000 in 4 months. An owner with a nearly new example reported a dealer offer $9,000 under book value. This is a Toyota truck, the kind of machine that historically refused to lose money, and uncertainty about what is inside the engine erased years of value in months. The old V8 was thirstier and slower, and it never did this to anybody. Number 12. The Mirai. The sedan from the auction lane at the top of this video. Toyota's hydrogen fuel cell flagship, over $50,000 new, and the single fastest depreciating vehicle the company sells. The 5-year projection is a loss of about 84%, and some examples have shed 65% in a single year. Cars that stickered near $50,000 are selling used for under $10,000, and nearly new ones fetch $15,000 to $18,000. The machine itself works fine. The problem is that you can only fuel it at one of roughly 54 hydrogen stations in the entire country, almost all of them in California. And the fuel is expensive when the stations work at all. Toyota sold about 210 of them in the whole country last year, and around 700 owners have joined a class action seeking billions, arguing they were sold a car they cannot actually use. Whatever the courts decide, the used market already delivered its verdict. A car is only worth what it can do, and a car that cannot reliably refuel is worth very little, no matter whose badge is on the nose. I will grant the engineering its due, because the fuel cell itself is a genuinely clever piece of work, hydrogen and air in, electricity and water vapor out, refueled in 5 minutes with no half-ton battery to lug around. On paper, it beats a battery car in almost every way. But a machine does not live on paper. It lives on infrastructure, and building a single hydrogen station costs over $2 million, while the country already has hundreds of thousands of electric plugs. The Mirai is what happens when brilliant engineering gets sent to fight an economics problem. The engineering loses, and the owner pays for the funeral. So there are your 12. And now, let us talk about the part that actually matters, because these crashes are not just trivia. They are a window into who pays when a manufacturer experiments. And I will give it to you straight. It is never the manufacturer. When Toyota bets on hydrogen and the bet fails, Toyota writes off a program. The owner writes off $40,000 of their own money. When a first-year engine ships with debris inside it, the company issues a recall and moves on. The owner takes the $9,000 hit at trade-in because the market does not care whose fault it was, only whose truck it is. When a marketing department invents a new nameplate to chase a trend, and the trend moves on, the depreciation lands on whoever signed the loan. There is no money for anybody in you buying the boring, proven, 5-year-old model that everyone understands. There is a great deal of money in launching something new, expensive, and unproven every 18 months, and letting the first owners fund the experiment with their trade in values. The dealers do fine either way, buying the confusion low and selling the badge high. The lender does fine, because a bigger loan on a faster melting asset means more interest either way. The only person in the chain who actually absorbs a value crash is the person holding the keys when it happens. Nobody planned that in a smoky room. It is just how the money flows, quietly, every single time. And notice one more thing. Every machine on this list crashed where Toyota strayed from its own old religion of simple, proven, and overbuilt. The market did not punish Toyota for being Toyota. It punished Toyota for acting like everybody else. And that is worth sitting with for a minute, because there is a bigger truth under it. Resale value is the most honest review a vehicle ever gets. Magazines can be charmed, awards can be bought with ad budgets, but the used market is just thousands of ordinary people voting with their own money about what they trust. And what they trust, decade after decade, is the same thing the old mechanics always trusted. The machine you understand. The engine with a track record. The design that has already made its mistakes on somebody else's dime. Every crash on this list is the market saying the same quiet sentence. Prove it first. There is something almost comforting about that, honestly. In a business drowning in marketing, the trade-in number never lies. So here is what I want you to take away from all this. First, the badge is not the machine. Judge the specific model, the specific generation, the specific engine, because as we just saw, the same logo can sit on a fortress and on a falling knife in the same showroom. Second, be very careful with first-year anything. First-year engines, first-year nameplates, first-year technology. Let the early adopters find the debris in the bearings. Third, watch what new models are doing to the used ones. When you see markdowns pile up on new inventory, the trade-in values behind them are already falling, whatever the salesman says. Fourth, orphans get cheaper, so never pay top dollar for a discontinued model, but do consider buying one used because a canceled nameplate with proven mechanicals, like a late Venza or Avalon, can be a genuine bargain for the second owner. And fifth, remember that depreciation is the biggest single cost of owning most vehicles, bigger than fuel, bigger than repairs. Picture yourself 2 years from now walking into a dealership to trade in, and the number they slide across the desk does not surprise you, because you already knew what your machine was worth and why. That is the whole game. The person who understands the value curve never gets ambushed by it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below which Toyota you own, how long you have had it, and what it is actually worth today against what you paid, because those real numbers from real driveways are worth more than any projection I can quote. And I read every single one of these. If you have taken a bath on one of these 12, or if yours is holding strong and proving me wrong, I want to hear that too. That is the honest data, and frankly, those comments are half the reason I keep making these. And make sure you are subscribed, because next time we are going after something that has been bothering me for years. The transmission fluid that manufacturers call lifetime fluid sealed in the gearbox, never to be changed. I am going to show you exactly what lifetime really means in that sentence, whose lifetime they are talking about, and why the answer is quietly one of the most profitable tricks in the modern car business. Once you hear it, you will never look at a sealed transmission the same way again. Until then, keep an eye on what your machine is actually worth, not what the brochure promised it would be. The badge gets the credit, but the metal does the work. See you in the next one.